Hi, welcome. Enjoy the content, subscribe, and turn on notifications.
Clara had always been viewed as a grounded woman, one of those steady souls who hold things together when life begins to waver. Married for nearly a decade to Derek, she'd crafted a life of predictability. It was the kind of union where everything functioned, or at least appeared to. Their home was orderly, bills arrived paid, weekend plans were penciled in, and little rituals gave their days a sense of continuity. They made sure to honor them. But slowly, the warmth between them cooled. Conversations grew practical, tenderness faded, and each day mirrored the last. Affection lingered, but closeness slipped away, as though they coexisted under the same roof without truly seeing one another. At work, the atmosphere was different. There, Clara felt more present. The shared laughter with co-workers, the unplanned meals, the quiet jokes exchanged during meetings about project timelines, it all sparked something in her. That's where Victor entered her world. An older man, self-assured, with the quiet confidence of someone aware of his presence. He never crossed a line, but his words carried a practiced charm. Clara had heard the whispers. Two colleagues had confided that he'd been involved with women who were already committed. They spoke of it like a secret game, something taboo yet thrilling. There was no condemnation, only a hushed excitement masked as gossip. One even joked that he was like a fleeting high, impossible to resist just once. Clara chuckled along, feigning detachment, but a quiet curiosity stirred within her. Maybe it was the emotional void she sensed at home. Maybe it was the way Victor looked at her in the hallway, or how he noticed small things, like her new earrings or the way she tied her hair, things Derek hadn't acknowledged in years. At first, they only exchanged brief messages in the team chat. Then came private conversations, always casual, always layered with subtle implication. Victor knew how to draw near and pull back at just the right moment. And that made Clara feel wanted in a way she hadn't in ages. It was like striking a match in a shadowed room, dangerous, but intoxicating. The messages began shifting in tone. The flirtation, once veiled, now carried a time, a place, and a clear invitation. Victor knew his role well. He'd played it before, deliberate, focused, strategic. One afternoon, as Clara sipped coffee at her desk, he approached from behind. Without turning to face her, he lightly touched the back of her chair and murmured, "I'm heading out early. Right after lunch. My place is close. I'll be waiting. We've got about an hour." Then he walked away, leaving no room for reply. Clara froze. Heat rushed to her cheeks, her pulse quickened. The boldness of the offer felt surreal, yet it carried a weight of attention she couldn't name. For the rest of the morning, she tried to concentrate, but her thoughts kept circling back to those words. She listed every reason not to go, the risks, the fallout, everything she stood to lose. But deep down, the choice had already been made. When noon arrived, she told a coworker she had a personal errand, grabbed her bag, and stepped out. The building where Victor lived was just a few blocks from the office. She arrived within minutes. He opened the door the second she reached it, his gaze steady, almost mocking, as if he'd known she'd come. Clearly, this wasn't new to him. Nothing about the moment felt spontaneous. The soft lighting, the low music playing in the background, his jacket draped casually over the arm of the couch, it all seemed carefully arranged. Clara stepped inside, trying to project calm, as though she were in control. Victor greeted her casually, like someone she'd known for years, bound by unspoken understanding. He said they had 50 minutes, and she didn't need to speak. He offered a glass of wine, made a quick remark about her scent, and in seconds, closed the space between them. Clara didn't resist. She said nothing. She let her body be guided, her mind dulled by the rush of sensation, simply followed the current. It was intense. Brief. Detached. Even Victor moved with precision, as though every motion followed a script he'd used countless times. When it ended, he stepped back, gave a faint, satisfied smile, and said he had to return to the office. Clara gathered herself, adjusted her hair in the mirror, picked up her bag, and left. She walked back with steady strides, trying to appear composed, but her heart still pounded. She re-entered the office as if returning from a routine lunch. No one noticed. No one suspected. Convinced this would vanish into silence, she returned to her desk, answered emails, and spent the afternoon repeating that it would never happen again. What she couldn't have known was that everything in that room had been recorded, every motion, every sound, every second, and that one day, it would escape the place where it was meant to remain hidden forever. On the way back, she kept telling herself it was just an error, a single lapse, never to be repeated. She deleted the messages, blocked Victor's number, and resolved to move forward. But what she didn't know was that Victor had a twisted habit. He filmed every encounter in his bedroom, without the women's knowledge. That afternoon, which Clara believed she had erased from existence, was preserved in perfect clarity, sound, image, detail, waiting for the moment it would surface. In the days that followed, Clara moved as though carrying out a silent penance. To an outsider, she seemed unchanged, arriving on time, smiling at coworkers, texting Derek during the day, staying connected with friends, some of whom, ironically, had also walked similar paths. They spoke of their experiences with eerie calm, as if it were just another chapter in life, something everyone was entitled to explore. They said the key was knowing how to return, how to regain balance, how to shut the door after stepping through. Clara listened closely, absorbing each excuse as a way to soothe the guilt inside. Over time, the memory stopped feeling like a burden and began to seem like a story that existed only in her mind, a secret with no witnesses, a misstep with no proof. At home, life with Derek shifted in an unexpected way. He began showing up more attentive, more affectionate. He cooked simple meals on random evenings, complimented her new style, asked if she wanted to watch a show together. Clara was puzzled at first, half expecting him to sense something had changed. But eventually, she decided it was just a good phase. Maybe he was trying to revive something they'd let fade, or perhaps it was simply a reflection of a lighter, more open version of herself. Either way, it strengthened her belief that what she'd done hadn't altered anything. In fact, it hadn't damaged the relationship. And if no harm had been done, then maybe it wasn't as serious as she'd first believed. Weeks turned into months. Derek showed no sign of suspicion. Their talks grew easier, weekends less quiet. Clara began to think that, in some twisted way, that slip had reignited something in their marriage. It was as if it had broken down an invisible wall that had kept her from seeing her husband clearly. She started noticing small gestures, sought intimacy, laughed at his jokes with genuine warmth. The man she'd married seemed to return, or perhaps it was her who had rediscovered herself after years of moving on instinct. In her mind, it felt like she'd taken a shortcut back to the main road. Her friends still met on Fridays, glasses of wine in hand, voices overlapping. Occasionally, Victor's name surfaced. No one spoke with regret. There was an unspoken rule that anything tied to him stayed in the past. When mentioned, it was with a laugh or a brief phrase, just a fling, or he knew exactly what he was doing. Clara joined in the laughter, but inside, a strange unease grew. She felt unsettled when someone praised how in control he always seemed, as if some part of her sensed it wasn't truly over, even without evidence. She decided to erase it completely. She wiped old messages, cleared chat logs, deleted phone records. She wanted no trace. More than that, she wanted to believe it had left no mark. Life with Derek remained calm. They dined out, planned a family trip. One night, as they lay closer than usual, she looked at him and felt a sharp mix of guilt and relief. She considered confessing, telling him everything. But the thought faded before it fully formed. It would unleash devastation. It would destroy what they'd rebuilt. In the end, she decided silence was the safest path. A mistake is a mistake, she told herself. But a revealed mistake becomes a disaster. And Clara believed she'd avoided the disaster. Her confidence in her own story grew as days passed without disturbance, no signs, no threats to the life she'd reconstructed. Victor seemed to have vanished from the company. Rumors said he'd quit and taken a position in another state. He left quietly, with no farewell, and that comforted Clara. To her, it felt like the past had been swept away with him. No one mentioned him. No one hinted at knowing anything. Life returned to normal. The marriage held steady. Work continued. The guilt slowly faded, as if time could erase even the deepest stains. Clara believed she'd won. The secret that once haunted her was truly buried. What she'd lived with Victor would remain with her, and her friends, who also moved on, each carrying their own silence. None showed remorse. The past was sealed, like a pact among accomplices who'd leave no evidence. For a long time, everything stayed quiet. The world remained intact. But what Clara never imagined was that not every pact survives time, and some secrets, no matter how deeply hidden, continue to breathe in the dark, waiting for the right moment to rise. Victor's name returned to Clara's life in the worst way possible. She was at home when Derek called her. His voice was flat. He held his phone, eyes locked on the screen. He simply said, "There's something you need to see." Clara assumed it was news, a meme, a photo. But the moment she looked, her stomach dropped. A frozen frame filled the screen. A second later, the video played, and there she was. Her face, her movements, her body, all visible, undeniable. Victor appeared from multiple angles, as if the scene had been captured by several cameras. She jerked the phone away, tried to speak, but Derek had already stood, dropped the device on the table, and walked silently toward the bedroom. She stood frozen, trying to process. The video looked like it came from an adult site, the quality too sharp, the angles too intentional. They were placed where only someone experienced would position them. The sensation was one of violation, of being stripped of herself. A video that, until that moment, she hadn't known existed. And the cruelest part? It was unfolding in front of Derek's eyes. The man who shared her life now shared her shame, spreading online like wildfire. Minutes later, a message from a friend, "Have you seen this?" She responded with a single what? Hoping it was about something else. But the reply came with a link. Another video. It wasn't just her. Other women from the office were exposed too. Victor's face appeared in nearly all of them. He had recorded everything. Everyone. And now it was spreading, viral. Adult sites published it with sensational titles. Messaging groups shared edited clips. Fake profiles popped up with compilations. A full-blown scandal, unfiltered, uncontrollable. Clara tried to speak, to explain, but Derek was already standing. The phone lay dark on the table. He walked to the bedroom, opened the door, and locked it behind him. She sat, paralyzed, heart racing, face burning. She wanted to run after him, to beg, to cry, to kneel. But the sound of the lock clicking shut killed every impulse. She pressed her ear to the door. Silence. No movement. No breath. Just emptiness. She spent the night awake, seated on the couch, staring at the wall. Her mind spun, searching for a way to undo the irreversible. In the morning, Derek emerged wearing the same clothes from the day before. He passed her without a word, grabbed his keys, glanced at her for a second, then left. Clara spent the entire day at home, waiting for a word, a question, even anger. When he returned late, he went straight upstairs and locked the door again. That night, she tried messaging Victor, the number was disconnected. Social media, all gone. His profile vanished, as if it had never existed. It was as if he'd planned his exit, knowing exactly what he was doing. The realization chilled her. Victor had recorded everything. And from the messages and comments flooding in, other women were in the same boat. Clara wasn't an exception. She was part of a pattern, part of a cruel game she never knew she was playing. 2 days passed. Derek didn't speak to her. He slept in the locked room, ate out, avoided all contact. Clara left notes, sent messages, tried every way to reach him. No response. On the third morning, she rose early and made coffee, a small gesture, perhaps naive, but holding a final thread of hope. When he came down, she stood waiting. Derek looked at her, his face blank. His voice was low, steady, "You need to leave." It wasn't shouted. It was delivered like a verdict. No rage. No sorrow. Just a quiet ache, one that had already surrendered. Clara didn't argue. She went upstairs, packed a small suitcase, clothes, charger, documents. She came down and paused at the door. Derek leaned against the wall, eyes on the floor. She opened her mouth, but he raised his hand, asking for silence. She understood. She left without looking back. There was nothing left to say. Outside, she wandered without direction. She called a friend, straight to voicemail. Messaged another, no reply. When she checked social media, she found herself removed from 2 groups. An acquaintance posted a vague, moralizing message, full of sideways jabs. Her name wasn't mentioned, but the target was clear. Clara felt the world receding. With every notification, more pain. The video still circulated. Comments kept coming. Platforms removed it, but copies reappeared. Sites mirrored it. Fake accounts created content. Strangers joked as if she were a character. But she was real. She was alive. And she felt every sting. Victor disappeared, no trace, no apology, no attempt to make amends. He dissolved into nothing, leaving her to face the wreckage. She carried the weight of a mistake she thought was buried, now dragging behind her with every step. The betrayal that once lived only in memory now existed in pixels, in words, in glances that followed her on the street. What began as longing ended in ruin. What started with a quiet invitation in a hallway was now an open wound before the world. She, who believed she was in control, learned in the cruelest way that she had none, that one choice, one impulse, could cost everything. And in that moment, alone with a suitcase in hand, Clara realized the true punishment wasn't exposure, it was being forgotten by those who once smiled with her, now pretending she never existed. Months passed. The divorce was finalized, signed without conflict, without lawyers, without shouting. It was as if both had accepted that everything was already gone. Trying to salvage anything would be like gathering ashes after a fire. Derek handled the paperwork with care, reviewed the terms, didn't ask if she agreed. She signed. She was too drained to fight. Her only wish was to end it quickly. Neither wanted to argue over possessions. What mattered, respect, connection, dignity, was already gone. The end was dry. Final. Absolute. Clara left the courthouse with a copy under her arm and a strange mix of relief and shame. Her life was unrecognizable. She rented a small apartment in a distant part of the city, a modest place where no one knew her. She needed to begin again, somewhere blank. She applied to smaller firms, far from her past, and landed a job as an administrative assistant at a logistics company. It wasn't her former role, and the pay barely covered rent, but she took it. Her goal was to disappear. She changed her number, deleted social media, avoided using her last name. She lived like a version of herself stitched together from fragments, surviving on what remained. She still caught glances in public, some recognized her, others just stared too long. That was enough to trigger her nerves. She walked with small steps, alert, avoiding crowds. She ignored unknown messages, rejected unfamiliar calls. Paranoia shaped her days. Clara grew used to silence, to loneliness, to the sour taste of being cast out. She broke a rule, crossed a boundary, and though others had too, she was the one exposed. Sometimes, she replayed that afternoon in Victor's apartment, the bold offer, the walk there, the timed encounter, the illusion of control. It felt distant, surreal, as if she'd lived it outside her own skin. But it was her. It was real. No outside force made her choice. No excuse justified it. Accepting that was like swallowing broken glass, daily. For weeks, she told herself she was only human, that everyone slips. But the world didn't want that story. It wanted a villain, a symbol of what people pretend doesn't exist, the woman who strayed, who was caught, who became a cautionary tale. Victor remained gone. Some women considered going to the police, but the public exposure was so vast that most chose silence. Shame became a chain, no one wanted to relive it before detectives, judges, prosecutors. And Victor knew that. That's why he filmed. That's why he hid it all. He bet on shame as armor, and it worked. While they carried the guilt, he vanished. Rebuilding was slow. Clara started therapy, but quit after a few sessions. She told the counselor it was pointless to dig into what couldn't be undone. She just wanted to learn how to endure. Gradually, she formed new routines. She shopped at the same time each day, took short walks, wrote in an old notebook, things she couldn't say aloud. No dreams for tomorrow. No real hope. Just the need to get through each day without new shocks, without more videos, without more judgment. Derek appeared once, months after the divorce. She saw him by chance at a cafe, laughing with a friend, looking at ease. He wore fresh clothes, his face relaxed, like someone who'd set down a heavy load. Clara didn't approach. She stood on the sidewalk a moment, then walked away. That night, she cried quietly on the thin mattress of her rented room, not for the lost marriage, not for what she'd lost, but for the certainty that it would never be forgotten. She could change cities, jobs, names, but her image was already fixed in a place that no longer belonged to her. People erased stories. The internet didn't. She stopped trying to understand. Stopped justifying herself. She began to accept her downfall as part of who she'd become, like a scar that aches when touched, but never fades, even after the skin heals. And so she moved forward, head down, promising nothing for tomorrow, aware that some mistakes, even small ones, carry consequences too great to bear, and that sometimes, just one wrong step is enough to lose everything a lifetime built. Thank you for watching the video. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you won't miss any updates. See you next time.